Hello everyone, and welcome back to MUP Halo, the only Halo show that will point out that Ungoy actually lived for 121 years, but they actually reach adulthood after 5 to 8. So just remember that next time you're gunning down all the grunts, you're probably killing multiple generations of grunt. Anyway, I'm Wiki Dave, and with me is my co-host James-005. How are you doing, James?
Good morning, Dave. I'm trying not to think about mowing down waves of multiple generations of grunts now. Thank you.
Yeah, every time you go and play Halo, you're going to just think, I'm probably killing a father and son right now. How do I feel about that? Anyway.
Excellent.
All right, so since our last episode, a lot has happened. So we're not going to fluff around too much with that opening banter. We're going to jump right into the news and start talking about what we know. So here we go. There we go. I'm getting better at the timing. I think I need to get it a little bit louder because it's a bit quiet. But anyway, so Wave 3 got announced, and that is massive. So we've got a new box set that came from it called The Rise of the Banished, which is interesting title, but it's still hitting that time, infinite time period that we set the game in. So we've got the Rise of the Banished box set. We also got Atriox being the new hero character, which is we all suspected. But what was interesting that came from that, there's actually going to be 2 versions of Atriox. So we're going to get this limited edition one that they're offering right now. But there was also going to be another version of Atriox, which sounds like to be a more standard version that you can buy separately. Now, that model hadn't been revealed until, I believe, the painter, I think, I can't remember who it was, Joe's, I believe it was, the one who actually painted the special edition Atriox. He leaked that. I don't know if he leaked it, but he posted that on his Facebook. I've put a picture of it in the Discord for MUP if you are curious of the 2 different versions. But I'll throw it to you, James. Have you seen both versions? What's your impressions on them?
Yeah, they're very similar. The pose is different. It's not one of those things where I see a special edition and I'd be rushing out, I must have the special edition one because that's way cooler, right? Like I have had that with special edition models in other systems in the past. But no, both look fantastic. Both are massive as well.
Yeah. So what's you've seen the offerings now, so before we actually dive into all the individual things, what's your overall impressions of what was released, or what was revealed, I should say?
So, I mean, I like it, and it's fantastic to see. It's fantastic to see. More stuff is coming. It's a lot of stuff. I was slightly disappointed. It's only brutes. That's possibly my biases kind of going in here. I've always found brutes the least interesting alien in Halo, and therefore, just from a visual design perspective, like everything else is like quite an odd, quite an alien-looking thing, and these are sort of just like, it's a big bear. So maybe that's possibly playing into my kind of my preferences there. I think that overall, it's fantastic to see a new big box. I'm slightly surprised they've done it as a new big box that doesn't seem to come with the core rules in it, from what's been said.
No, but just to add on to that, because that was pointed out in some of the Discord, and Cleric/Clive did mention that shouldn't be an issue when that comes out. So it sounds like they might actually make the rules available digitally for free.
Which is fantastic. So, and that's, to be honest, that's what every other games company does other than Games Workshop. Like, if you're a Games Workshop person, that might sound strange to you. It is very rare now in this industry that the rules are online for free. So if they're sorting that out, that's fantastic, especially given that some of the convolutions of these rules. I think that'll be incredibly helpful. Great to see another big box. I'm really surprised it's kind of brute on brute rather than being like a brutes versus ODSTs or sort of a more kind of mixed bag. But definitely interested in picking that one up, and it looks fantastic.
Now, just for the uninitiated with the Mantic do post the rules of their games online already. They have something called the Mantic Companion, where you can actually, which I'm guessing this might be an add-on there, where you can actually build your army lists, and you've got rule sets in there as well, and that kind of adds keywords and so forth. So it's not an unfamiliar thing for Mantic to put this online. So I think it is hinting that this is going to be there. I think they probably do need to get a little bit of a sign-off from Halo Studios just to make sure that's okay, because IP protecting and all that fun stuff. So I think that's the direction it's going to go, because otherwise they probably would have included them in the box. It would be a really silly move not to, and they knew they wouldn't be able to post it online.
Yeah, I think what they've said is it's gonna have its own separate sort of version of the app for Halo, so that they don't have to mix IPs, which does make sense, because where you've got an IP owned by somebody else, that arrangement can come to an end, and then you don't want your Kings of War app being taken out by needing to separate, on Microsoft's IP out from your product. It's quite. I think they've spoken about that in the past, so I suspect it's just a bit of development lead time, really.
Yeah. And I think that's what's going to bridge that gap, which is good. It is also a little bit annoying at the same time, because we'll play devil's advocate on here for the dirty casual that doesn't realize that the rules are online, and that's actually what they need on top of buying the box. So if you see this on the shelf, you buy it, and then you open it, you're like, I can't actually play the game. I'm hoping at least, there'll be something in there that kind of directs them in that direction. But I can see how that can be a bit annoying for especially people that are just picking up the game for the first time. So to play as devil's advocate, it is good that they're posting online. It does lead to maybe possibly other problems for people coming into the hobby as well. So I can see it both ways.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
So we'll dive further into it. So, but the good thing is about the model, and you said this, James, is that they do look like a big bear. They actually are supposed to look like big bears. That's actually how their biology is actually evolved in terms of the canon. So it's probably a good thing. But one thing I actually do want to mention is the size of the brutes. Now, the one thing that I personally was looking forward to with this release was to have some kind of indication how they're going to treat canon, because it's a very kind of like, in canon, the brutes are massive, and they're a lot bigger in terms of height. And based off the photos that we've managed to get from Adepticon of people putting the regular Spartans next to it, it looks like it is a very canon accurate depiction of the model. So just to give you some height ideas, we've got these normal Spartans. The normal Spartans are around about 6 foot, 6 foot 2 inches to 9 inches. So that's around about the height of them in game. Master Chief is always a bit taller, so he's about 7 foot 2. So if you put them side by side, he is around about like an inch from their scale. A foot, based off their scale, taller. And so the brutes, they typically range from 8 foot 6 to 9 foot 6. 9 foot 2. 9 foot 2. So they're about 2 feet taller than Master Chief, and about 3 feet taller than the regular Spartans. So they're about a third, half taller. Half taller. So a Spartan and a half tall. And it looks like that has translated onto the table. Maybe not exactly accurate, but it's clear that scale has been kept as well. So I guess, I'll throw it to you, James. How do you feel, because the bases are bigger as well, to compensate for it. How do you feel about the models being this big? Because it is lore accurate, yep, but how does that kind of affect the gameplay side of things?
So I mean, it should make a massive difference from a gameplay perspective, because you're gonna have them standing taller, so they're going to be able to see more stuff on the board, but they're also going to be seen more easily. I think till we see some rules, it's very difficult to say. But actually, from a model and posing perspective, I don't think it makes any real difference. It gives and it takes away, being a bit taller.
Yeah, I was suspected, because it's all sometimes about line of sight and you actually physically needing to see it. I thought that might be a little bit more of a disadvantage, considering they're a bit of a bigger hitbox, you could say. But again, yeah, it depends once we actually got it in hand and look at the actual rules itself. But it's just these things are what we noticed that might be considered. But I'm sure they have been considered, but as they were developing it as well, it's not something they would have accidentally done. So it's something just to note as we go through this. The other cool things that we noted about, and this is all in the Banished box so far, so we're going to be covering everything in there first. We've got Banished terrain, so that's really cool to see that we've actually got specific, and it looks like Halo Infinite style terrain as well, which is really, really cool. It looks like the booklet in there is called Defiance. So if you remember our Atriox chat that we had you remember, hey, James, Atriox chat that we had a few podcasts ago about why it would be called Defiance?
No, so it doesn't scan for me at all, Defiance.
I sent it to James, and James was like, "No, we should do a podcast on Atriox and why it's called Defiance." I'm like, "We already did that." So Defiance is basically Atriox rebelled against the Covenant, and he defied the Covenant, and the Banished slowly grew and essentially defied and held out against the UNFC, the Flood, the Covenant, and kind of was he defied things. So I think Defiance kind of hits the rise of the Banished kind of theme as well. But it also shows that Defiance, you could say it's I don't know if you call it the second expansion. I don't know how we're going to word it at the moment, but I would say that's going to be the next lot of rules that we're going to get is in the Defiance expansion.
Yeah, we can see some more items in there. It'd be very interesting to see what they put in the Defiance expansion. I'm presuming some more game types, more game modes. I think Ronnie's talked about sort of moving to a position where we're not, where there's game modes where you don't respawn. I think it'd be phenomenally interesting how that would work, because Spartans die pretty quickly, and I don't imagine the brutes are going to be changing that fact. So, I think it'd be very interesting to see how that's all going to fit together.
Yeah, exactly. We also got different colored dice, so we've got Banished exclusive dice. Looking at these really cool grey looking things. I've actually put it in the thumbnail for this video if you're watching it on the YouTubes. We also got 8 different types of brutes, all looking like they've got their own loadout. I guess loadouts aren't too necessary nowadays, now that we can actually build out the characters, but it looks like we got it looks like a captain, a chosen warrior, that's the one that's actually in gold. They were holding a sentinel beam, so those are the beams that those Forerunner flying drone things drop when you're playing the game. We also had them holding a Mangula. We had a Berserker holding a Dynamo grenade, and that's it's kind of like a shock grenade kind of thing. We also had a shock rifle, which we already got in game, but we just actually got them holding it. We also got another Berserker that held a spike grenade, so that's actually a new one there. Spike grenades are going to be interesting because they kind of stick on walls, so I think it might be interesting if there is a rule set that you're going to throw it and it kind of sticks to a wall or something to kind of incorporate that. We also got them holding a Hydra. I got a sniper holding a skewer, and also a warrior holding a commando. So it's a bit of mix of stuff that we've already got in game, but the skewer, spike rifle, sentinel beam, dynamo, grenade, and mangula, those are all new weapons as well. So we're going to be getting another dump of them, and we're slowly ticking off all those weapons being introduced to the game. Is there any of those weapons jump out at you there, James?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be interesting to see how they differentiate the new grenades from other things. I'm presuming the Dynamo grenade's going to have ESD, which is one of the new keywords from war games. But it'd be interesting to see how is a spike grenade? Is it sticky? If so, how is it different from the plasma grenade? I think that'll all be interesting stuff, and it would look, new guns are always interesting. It'll be interesting to see how they work and how they're costed.
It's going to be very interesting. And we also got a new playmat, so we've got a Banished theme playmat as well, so I'm wondering whether we're going to get a more deluxe version of that. We also got the Sangheili models in this one again, so you can actually double up on your Sangheili. If you get the Spartan edition and then you got this edition, you'll have double Sangheili. So I think it was interesting they included them, but not include new models for them, which is a bit disappointing.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see. So if we're going to work on this rough cycle of kind of Wave 1 was a big box, Wave 2 was some more models to fill it out, Wave 3 is a big box, Wave 4 potentially by the end of the year we might be starting to see some Jackals or some other, some other models. Maybe that's when we get more, kind of get different different poses for the elites. I wonder, given the differentiation, it's gonna be really interesting to see how those elites kind of fit in. Very interesting. We'll talk a bit more about the elites when we get over to the sort of the wrap up on war games. But I guess I guess it's interesting to see them not come in their own box, but be bundled again into the bigger box. That's certainly interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting strategy, and again, they're heading into the territory of working out what works at the end of the day. So they're putting this in, seeing if, does it hit? Is it as accessible? Because I mean, there's only one version of the box. It's just the basic version. I mean, we had the original release, and that was the Spartan edition, and then you had the Recon edition. This is just a big box of brutes, and it'll be interesting to see how people kind of buy it and see how it kind of hits once it actually comes out. Now that was the big reveal. The models look gorgeously painted once again. The ones that they're doing an amazing job on them. I personally, just as a fan, I think they look really great and very, very accurate to the current version of Halo, being Halo Infinite. I've been playing a little bit more Halo Infinite recently, so it's kind of fresh in my brain, and I think they've done a really wonderful job on those models. The fact they're bigger as well and to canon scale actually gets me a little bit excited. I actually get a little bit kind of like, this is actually really, really cool. So I can't wait to get it. And yeah, I can't wait to get in my hot hands and actually play with them. Now, to add on to that, so along with the box that we had released there, we actually finally did get the card holders, which are quite interesting. Now, I mean, the card holders, I think, come from, I think, some of the community doing them anyway. So you kept on seeing these card holding 3D prints popping up all over the place. We saw it on Reddit, we see it in a lot of Facebook groups, and people were selling like the prints or the STLs for like $5. So I think these came from the fact that people were doing them anyway. So Mantic, I think, would have gone just, hey, let's just make an official version here because it's nice and easy, and it kind of will fit the model of what they want the playing experience to be as well. What's your impressions there, James, of those card holders? I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, but I don't know, everyone's got their own opinion on things.
Yes, I mean, look, if this is the thing you want, grab them. They make sense. I wasn't using card holders prior to war games. I do think with war games, you often need to keep more stuff together. So you're going to have like more tokens. A model is going to be comprised of like more tokens, more pickup items. So having something to keep yourself organised really will help. I've designed some myself because I'm a 3D printing nerd as well as everything else. So I've designed some myself that magnetize so that you can put all the stuff you need for a loadout for an individual model in a single tray and then magnetize them all with a lid so that they're kind of all, the model is together and ready to kind of rapid deploy onto the tabletop. I find as an event player, I'm very into making like stuff you can do to keep yourself organised at the tournament to reduce your own stress levels and let you focus as much as possible on the game is I find incredibly helpful. So I've kind of gone that way with it. Also, I've got mine in nice chunky top loaders, my cards, so I need something that would fit them. So, but if if you're not a 3D printing nerd and you don't have the time to meticulously design your own solution, these are going to be a fantastic resource. I do think not making them stackable is a little bit of a miss, but that's that's me and my preference rather than anything else. But by all means, grab them if you need them. If you don't need them, there's a whole economy now whenever a new game comes out of people on Etsy creating things that they can sell you to enhance your experience. So consider whether these are the ones for you. But if in doubt, I would generally urge people towards buying from Mantic because that then helps keep the game alive much more than buying from third parties. But similarly, if a third party is doing something better, go for it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that's the nature of competition. But I do agree. If you want to support the company and the products, we personally don't obviously have it yet. But if it's good, if it does the job, and there's no reason to do it, I would say support the company as much as you can, because the more they sell, obviously, the more they make, and that's just the nature of capitalism, really. But ultimately, We did have that. Now, what Mantic did when they did drop the Rise of the Banished, they actually also released a bit of a release bundle, which included these card holders, included Rise of the Banished, included the Atriox figure, but also included that limited edition Fireteam Phoenix set that we were talking about, which were a little bit of a master resin, higher quality models there. So you could actually buy them or as a big bundle. I personally probably will buy them as a bundle, but I'm holding off until I actually have confirmation of my War Games pre-order, which I'm still waiting for. So just while we're on that note, I did reach out to say, at what point should we start to get worried if we haven't got confirmation that our pre-order's been sent out? So if you're listening to this and it's past the 3rd or the 4th, which should be because this comes out on the 3rd or the 4th, and you've done a pre-order but haven't got that confirmation yet, reach out to Mantic at that time, because all the pre-orders, the majority of pre-orders should be sent out. I do even know this week, and we're filming this two days in advance, so this is actually the first. People are still just getting their confirmation of it being sent out, especially in the Americas as well. So hold off until the 3rd. So if you're hearing this and you still haven't got it, reach out to Mantic and make sure you follow up on that. Just on a side tangent. But yeah, you can buy everything in a big bundle, and the Fireteam Phoenix as well included there, which they look gorgeous. And I really want them, but that's just the collector side of me. I think it's a really good package. I think it's really cool. I really do like this idea of Mantic bundling all the new stuff together and allowing people to just buy the new stuff in one big package. I think that kind of helps, especially with reducing the cost side of it, but also kind of with players not getting confused of what they do or don't have as well. Like, what's new? What should I get? I don't know. I personally think it's a really good move. What about yourself there, James?
Yeah, I mean, it does make a certain amount of sense. I was a little disappointed last week to discover that Mantic ship their own pre-orders before they ship to retailers in my country, which I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily terribly helpful to retailers who you kind of need to carry your stuff. But the sort of, I think having these bundles with the pre-orders, it makes a lot of sense for Mantic, I'm sure. Ultimately, I'd always encourage people to support their FLGS, so that we need game stores, we need places to play. They're essential for the ecosystem. So where possible, I'd encourage people to buy from there. You'll also generally get it cheaper. But similarly, if you want to go for the Mantic pre-order bundle, or there aren't FLGSs where you are, then this is a good way to get what you need.
They're also web store exclusive packages as well, some of the bundles. So some of the stores may not either get a discounted or may not even offer them. So I would say do what you suggested. Go to your store first, see whether they can actually get it themselves, just to help their metrics, because it should be the same price on theory. But I mean, if all else fails, you always got directly from Mantic.
Yeah, it would generally be cheaper from your local gaming store, in my experience. Like, having been to Mantic's HQ store and bought stuff on their website, it's generally cheaper to buy from, certainly UK-based people. I don't know about other economies. Certainly in the UK, it is generally cheaper to just buy it from one of the, either your friendly local gaming store or one of the bigger online retailers in the UK than it is to buy direct from Mantic if you don't want all the stuff. Although, as always, one of them has been incredibly scammy for 20 years, and people are still complaining that they're not sending stuff out very quickly. And I was reading something on the forum. I'm not going to say which one, but if you're in the UK, you know which one it is. It's one of the big three who has always been a bit scammy, and it just continues to disappoint its customers. And I don't understand how they're still in business, but why people still buy
customers keep going back. I mean,
this is it. Don't order. There are some massive and great UK retailers like Firestorm Games, like Element Games in the UK. They're both fantastic retailers. My own FLGS is brilliant. Leodis Games in Leeds. You don't need to order from the southern scammy retailer. Please, people, it's just not necessary. Don't do it.
Well, we're not going to get sponsored anytime soon. Anyway,
not by them anyway.
Yeah. I know in New Zealand it's pretty much the same price whether you get it from Mantic or whether you get it from any stores that stock any Mantic stuff. I think the only official supplier of Mantic stuff is actually an online store, which is our version of Amazon, called Mighty Ape. and it's only slightly cheaper there, and it's easier for me just to get it directly from Mantic. But I mean, every place is different, so I would say shop around, vote with your wallet. It does hold some weight at the end of the day. Just to go on to what else has become available, I think one thing that a lot of people have actually overlooked, you can actually now buy Master Chief on its own from the store. I don't know if you noticed that there, James, but you can actually buy Master Chief on its own, which is really good to see. It's actually available for pre-order. It looks like shipping on May 2025, same time as the shipping Fireteam Phoenix as well. But it's good because that was one of the issues that I had, is if you've got this competitive game and you've got a particular model that has a particular set of rules associated with it and you can't actually get it yourself to play it, it kind of leads people at a disadvantage to use an alternative model, which they do kind of frown against at the moment. So it's good to see that actually now in the store to buy separately.
Yeah, but Clive can't be everywhere, so fill your boots.
I know.
I think but no, I think and I think you're right. I know distribution of that paint set that he was originally in was somewhat patchy. But it's good to see this guy packaged. I don't think you're at any competitive disadvantage not having Master Chief, so that's always good. But obviously, as the poster child of the franchise, you absolutely you're going to want one in your collection. So put one in your collection. This makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but I mean, I think to make the game as fair as possible, you want someone that's just new to the game to have the ability to pick whatever they need on the table and be at a fair playing field with everybody. So I'm a big believer that, even though when you break it down, you look at Master Chief specifically, the rule sets, all that, it's he's not that great, but it's more of just the point of having it all available, so everyone's on a level playing field. So there isn't this illusion that certain people have access to certain roles that gives them an advantage. So I'm a believer of keeping it as fair as possible. And to add on to that, we also do have the organized play kits releases as well. So we knew that was coming. We did just discuss that. I think it was the last episode we did discuss that. So we've got organized play kit 2. So that will have probably the new maps, the oddball reloaded, a lot of the revisions of the originals, and also probably the war games maps as well inside of that. And obviously we'll go through that in a second. We also got the organized play GT kit, so of those actual resin models included on there, and it looks like they ship in July 2025. So that looks like it aligns with Wave 3. So it looks like the GT pack 1, as they call it, will be in July. So I'm suspecting it will include some of the changes that come with the brutes, because the brutes are due to ship in July as well. So I think the GT pack is going to include essentially Wave 3, and I'm going to pop it into that Wave 3 category. It's going to include all those changes that may be included in that Defiance. We'll call it Defiance expansion until otherwise known. The Defiance loadout or the expansion of all those changes. But we'll see. I'm hoping it will be a little bit of... It would be a bit silly for them to ship it out in July for it not to include that information, but this is just what we know based on what has been released. But yeah, those are all the releases. So from my personal opinion, I think they've done a really good job, and I think Clive and the team should really pat themselves on the back. I think they've done. Personally, I think it's really good. I think it's a good customer friendly options that you have different ways. There's multiple different bundles, and you can definitely select what you want. Pricing, that could be a bit of a debate about. I think it could be on a little bit on the higher side in some areas, but at the end of the day, it's that is everyone has a different perspective on that. I'm not going to go into that because everyone's in a different financial position. But yeah, that's my opinion on it. What about you, James? What's your overall impressions of the releases?
So, I mean, coming from recently from other war games, it's difficult for me to look at any of this and go, this is expensive. So, I'm used to Marvel Crisis Protocol, where you'll pay £45 for 2 models, right? One of which will generally be unplayable trash. So I'm sort of in a position where we're paying sort of £35 for 4. I'm fine with. I've never quite.
There was a saying that I got told: just because it's cheap doesn't. Oh, sorry, just because it's cheaper doesn't make it cheap.
True, Yeah, no, that's really true, and I think as well. I mean, gamers sometimes get a little bit too hung up on how much plastic am I getting. It's like I'm not entirely clear why 20 skeletons is more fun than one Spartan. So I don't, you know, what I mean, I do think I do think, you know, we should probably look at kind of dollars in for fun out. There's certainly a lot of options here and a lot of stuff. I think the organised play offer could stand to be a little less confused. I think there's kind of it might just have been the original comms of that, but it is that I think could be clarified a little bit. I'm loving the idea of kind of these kind of more hobbyist friendly kind of resin kind of sharper detail things being more prevalent. Yep. I think that's great. They'll always be at premium because they'll have to be at a lower print run scale, so you'll always end up paying a bit more for those. But yeah, I think the game's good in terms of the entry point is reasonably low cost-wise, but then you can scale this. You know, if your coping mechanism is buying toy soldiers, there's plenty to do. So yeah. I think this is a broadly a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I'm stacking up a lot, as I mentioned way more times than I probably should. You know, I'm going to hopefully be getting a heart transplant soon, so I'm going to be in a lot of downtime for me. So I'm hoping that this aligns with that pretty well, so I'll be able to get it and also just be in the recovery room just painting models. I think that'll be a lot of fun painting my little brutes. So I'm excited, and I think they've done it. And also, you know, it gives us also a good idea of the approach, as you mentioned before, James. So we've got the original. So this is the timeline at the moment. So we've got the original release, and then we got a Wave 2, which is more of an expansion, little addition, and then we got another box set with Wave 3. So Wave 4, are we going to be looking at maybe a smaller release? But what would be included with that smaller release? Would we just get more brutes? I mean, I don't think that would be too interesting in terms of bringing in new people, of just getting another set of brutes that we've already got in the Rise of the Banished. So it'll be interesting to see what we're actually going to get with that Wave 4 release. Now it's leading to a few questions, and then after that, which they've planned. I've got like from the sounds of it, about a 5-year plan as well. So Wave 5, what will be there? Because I think it was a given that we're going to get brutes. We knew that pretty early on that we're going to get brutes, because it was, I think Ronnie just couldn't help himself and kept on teasing it. So it'd be really interesting from Wave 5 what we're going to get. Are we going to get a new faction? Are we actually going to be just adding to what the factions we already have? Are we going to get ODSTs? There's so many questions of which direction we go in from here, because I think they've covered the major bases now of brutes and Spartans. What's next? So it's a really exciting. It's going to be an exciting couple of months as we get that information, because it sounds it's on a 3-month cycle.
Yeah, I think that's it's going to be really interesting to see how this. Going to be really interesting to see how this develops. I can't wait to see what's next. But in the meantime, we've got we've got new expansion and more toys coming. So couldn't be happier.
Yeah, that's great. So that's the end of the news, I believe. So that's all the new stuff. Do we have anything else I think I'm pretty sure I covered everything, right?
I think that's the news. Yeah. Cool.
So we'll do the classic outro. It's becoming a classic outro, but we'll do it. Here we go. Alright, so the news is over, but now we're actually going to dive into Wargames. So, as I said before during the news segment, I don't have the Wargame stuff in my physical hands at the moment. I'm still a little bit nervous I'll even get my pre-order, but James, luckily, lives... So, what? You only live a couple hours from Mantic, right?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough. I'm very fortunate in terms of I live a couple of hours from Mantic HQ, which in the UK is a long way, right? I know that 100 years is a long time in America. 100 miles is a long way in the UK, but like 2 hours driving anywhere is pretty unusual in the UK. But I'm also quite fortunate or unfortunate that my work essentially makes me drive past Nottingham, on a very regular basis. So I'm fortunate enough that I'm quite often driving past Mantic HQ, or we're in a position where Mantic HQ is a 10-minute detour. So I was fortunate enough that actually I knew I wanted 2 of every Spartan, so I'd ordered 1 set from my FLGS, and when that hadn't turned up on Thursday, I was passing Mantic HQ for work. So just like, right, I will pop in there and picked a couple of picked a copy up off the shelves. So. Yeah, so very fortunate. So I've had it in hand for a few days now. Played a few games, but not too many. So we can go through and kind of give kind of first impressions, and go from there.
I guess we'll start. We'll start at the easiest question. Was there anything there that surprised us? I think that's the key, and then we'll kind of break every single thing down, because I don't think there was a lot there that was really surprising. I think we kind of expected everything. I mean, obviously the specifics of points and so forth, that that's a discussion point there. But I can't see anything in there that really was like, oh, that I didn't see that coming.
No, I think the sort of the closest thing to that, we'd done a pretty good job of figuring it out. So I think probably the bits we missed. Items aren't anchored to models, so you kind of build your list and then you assemble the things you've taken onto the team at the table. That's not a big deal right now. I would love us to get to. So I come from games like Marvel Crisis Protocol, like Malifaux, where you do list building at the table for the mission. I'd love us to get to a position where we're, say, bringing 250, 300 points to an event, and then playing 200-point games, so that you've got that kind of flexibility. I think that adds a load of depth to list building. Not essential right now, but something that could become a thing later on, and add a nice kind of layer of depth to list building beyond what we've already got. So yeah, those kind of unanchored items I hadn't considered. The way grenades are, it's reasonably minor, but you buy grenades, and then they're attached to the model using the same item tokens as everything else, but they count as being a line of text on the model. So you can have up to 2 grenades and up to 2 items. The useful thing about that is a grenade which is a sort of on your stat line can be snap fired. A grenade which is an item can't be, due to a convolution of the rules. So those are fairly minor. Command upgrades are limited to 1 each. Those are probably the kind of the bits that we miss, but broadly the rest is as we'd expected.
The one thing that did surprise me, though, is the special orders. The fact of every special order has a point associated with it, because I thought it was just going to be a broad, you could just pick X amount of special orders, but they've actually got a points breakdown of every special order, which I found was a little bit surprising. I thought it was just going to be a case of, you only can pick a special order or 2, but it turns out it works off as a point system, which is interesting.
Yeah, and they're mandatory. You have to take one. I'm not entirely clear why you have to take one, gameplay-wise, because if you want to choose to have 1 in 6 of your order dice not do anything by not taking one, I don't really know why they're forcing the issue, but it is what it is. What's quite interesting is like the sort of the new, the sort of, they're in there as points at the moment until we get a few more options. I think certainly for the Spartans, it's fairly obvious you should be playing Snapshot. The Return to Sender is sort of wildly underpowered and overcosted, but that the individual costs are always going to be a bit variable. But Snapshot at 2 points is an absolute bargain, so that's not an issue.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that, if I've interpreted this correctly, the special orders, you essentially assign a special order to a particular model, and that adds the points to that model. So you could potentially have every model on the table with a different special order, based off how this point system. At the moment, there's only like 3 for Spartans, 2 for Banished, but hypothetically, as the game grows, things are added, you could potentially have a different special order for every model. So it'll be interesting to see, if that adds a little bit more variant degrees to model building, of list building, and so forth.
It's slightly different. It's slightly different to that, but so the way it's listed out is special orders can be limited to specific models, but they're not attached to, as far as I can see. So it's so the Master Chief special order can only be used by Master Chief. At the moment, for the others, they can be used by anything. But like, say, Snapshot can be any Spartan, right? Not necessarily, but things like Reinforcements can only be used by the Sangheili mercenaries, whereas Alliance, one of the banished ones, can be used by any banished. It could be quite relevant if we get like ODSTs later on, or when we get this next wave. There'll be some that work for some models and not for others. I think this has got some scope to really grow and become a core part of the game. these special orders once we get a few more. It looked like, or I assume that there's some more coming in the next Banished box, which would be a good way to kind of uprate your Spartan list potentially by having access to different special orders.
Yeah, I mean, we always said that War Games was essentially their way of future-proofing the game as well, introducing those things that they didn't do in the original run, and also get ready for what they've got planned. I've just actually reread the first sentence because I'm one of those people that apparently jumped over it. It says you can take up to 3 special orders, so there is actually a limit in that example that I made about 4. That's not relevant. You can just take up to 3, so there is a limitation on it. Never mind, but yeah, it just adds to that list building, and it's got to be interesting to see how people interpret it and how people take it into tournaments and so forth. So, all right. Well, I guess we're ripped off the band-aid of the things we didn't expect. We can actually break it down bit by bit now. So where do you want to start there, James?
So I think, I don't want to do a massive breakdown of I'm not going to read the points to you, right? You've either got a copy of War Games, if you're engaged enough to be listening to this, you've already got a copy of War Games, or you can track down some screenshots online.
Hey,
I think
James, some of us aren't lucky enough, like you, to have a copy of the War Games, all right?
I know, I'm rubbing it in.
We get what you mean.
But yeah, so if this is not going to be one of those podcasts where we sit and we read the rules to you. So I do think probably I'll sort of pull out a few kind of key thoughts for people. So looking at points, I know there's been a lot of sort of initial chatter online about what happens to the current method and kind of can I still draft? Can I still play the game without points? You can still draft if you want to draft from a pool of models. I think that's a thing that you could do. The points costs are in quite a narrow band for the Spartans, and that's probably a constraint of the fact that they want to keep you around 4 models, but they aren't willing to say you can only take between X and Y models, which means that they can't have any Spartan cost under 35 points, otherwise you'll be able to get 6 wide. And realistically, things start to get very prohibitive once you kind of go north of 50. So you've got the Spartans kind of operating in that kind of 15-point range. That means that, actually all of the fire teams, if you take your kind of as printed team out of the recon box, right, with the knives attached to them, that's 182 points, right? The elites out of the box are 190 points with the ones that would have daggers on them. So they're like 8 points apart. The 2 new fire teams that have come out are actually coming in a few points under that. So actually, you could windmill slam, a couple of boxes together, and it'd be pretty reasonable to expect yourself to have a reasonably balanced game. So if you're not particularly bothered by points, I wouldn't be too worried about it at this stage, particularly if you're drafting with an opponent by alternating picks from the same pool of models. That will self-balance. Points-wise, there are some odd ones, right? And we did say originally, that that this would be, because of the lead time on printing stuff, this will be like where the Mantic thought the game was like 6 months ago. So it will mean there are some things that have kind of, where our thinking as a community is ahead of where Mantic was when they wrote these points down for this book. Probably the real example of that is if you think about playing the current game, playing the Spartan, or the previously current game, the Spartan edition, you'd be talking about probably the best Spartan was the Mark 7, cost 40 points. The worst one would be a Zvezda with a Cinder Shot, also cost 40 points. Yeah, some of that's exactly the same. Some of that's in how new rules interact with these models, but a lot of that is in. There are some bits where the points costs vary. Now, with any points-based system, you're generally looking to leverage where the developers have got the points wrong to build the most powerful list you can. So, it's not a problem. Nothing in here looks inherently problematic, but there are some interesting points, variations you can take advantage of as a player.
Yeah. I was going to say the Brawler is only 1 point less than the MK7, so that's showing where they price those points, and I would put the Brawler a little bit less than those points that they put at 39. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if obviously I haven't played it yet, and I don't know how much experience you've had, but the most expensive Spartan as they've got here at the moment is number one is Master Chief at 88, which I do think that's maybe a little bit on the high side. But as the normal Spartans were, the CQB is actually the most expensive normal Spartan at 51. Now, that's one of the new Spartans that come with the War Games expansion. Don't know if it's worth it yet, based off what we can see there. I don't know. What's your impressions there, James, of it?
So I have put the CQB on the table. I'm not sure it's worth 51. There is I think there's probably a couple of things. If you think back to our episode with Isaac talking about where we talked a bit more about the what's good in the game. What's good in the game is frag, tactician, and kind of pinning. Those seem to be being undercosted in here. There seems to be an overcost of kind of survivability and optics. It feels a little bit, my initial kind of high level thinking is, there doesn't seem to be a lot of value placed on tactician, which is not really aligned to how the game tends to play, which just creates an opportunity for in list building, right? You're making a set of decisions, a set of cost-based decisions. It would probably have I think they're probably undercosting models with tactician by 3 to 5 points at the moment, but that allows us to take advantage of that, and that becomes a differentiating factor in list building. But there's nothing on here that's unplayable, though. I could see a case for putting any of these models in a list, but I think if you're trying to build the most efficient thing possible, I think there are some kind of there are like to be some more obvious go-tos, but we'll see that when we've had a few events.
Correct, yeah. There's a few things that I actually haven't gotten from you. Like, I don't know the stats for the target locator, because I was actually curious about that one, because I thought that was going to be one of those heavy weapons one, but based off the points, I don't think it's going to be as powerful as I thought it was going to be.
I think frag is weird in the sense that it's not hugely costed. The target locator is a frag 6 2-use weapon. I think we've got it on one of the JFO models. I think we have seen that somewhere. It's on the JFO. It's also available to be kind of attached. It's a range 6. Blast, explosive, frag 6, lethal 1 2 uses. It's got no ESD. It's a 2-use. It's a long, so it requires a lot to fire. Frag 6 is a good, if you can catch a cube full with a couple of people in it on frag 6, you're going to do some damage. I'm not sure if it's overly worth 7. Again, the kind of constricted. I did say when we did our weapons review, my bet for the most overcosted weapon would be the Spanker, and I think I'm right on that. The Spanker's 11, which is towards the top end of costs for a weapon. I don't know why you would pay 11 points for a Spanker when you can get a fuel rod gun for 10. But that's all stuff to be. It's all stuff to be. There is possibly, I think, there might be an overvalue of range. I think possibly there is a bit where they've overcosted range into the game a little bit. The M40 assault rifle, is a fantastic gun and is one of the cheapest. I think there's a definite, but this is all where it's fun to explore what's going to be efficient and what isn't. So I don't want to sound like I'm being down on this, because I don't think that's the case. I think this is it's just differentiation in the system.
Yeah, I think when you're hearing this feedback, just take it as we're just looking at the words on the piece of paper. We haven't tested this out enough. We haven't haven't played through it enough to actually have a good opinion. This is just us face value, and then it's going to come in the wash to see what works. And we could be completely wrong, but we also will interpret it. It will change our agreement. Now, our interpretation of it all. I think one of the questions I do have though is another thing that did jump out at me is one of the new weapons is actually the top weapon in terms of points, and that's the Spartan laser. Now, I don't have the stats of the Spartan laser here. What's your impressions? Do you think it's worth the massive 16 points that you pay for a Spartan laser?
This is very interesting. I think it's a point at what you want to die weapon. It's pretty strong. This is where I don't actually have my Spartan laser card to hand. It's one of the few I don't have to hand. I'm going to rummage.
mid, if you look at the book, if you've got the book right in front of you, go to page 5. You should be able to see it on the top right.
Is it? Oh, okay. In which case, I don't have to rummage. So, it's a range 7 AP4 weapon. It's lethal 2. It's long. It's optics. It's wet fire 2. So you get the reroll 2. So optics with reroll 2 is pretty good. It's range 7, but it is a long. So you are using your whole activation to shoot the thing. It looks, it will kill stuff. It will kill stuff dead. There's no ESD on it, so you're talking about to kill a healthy Spartan, you need 4 more successes, which doesn't make it inherently killier than a lot of other guns out there, right? Like I think the sniper rifle. So with optics, though, you'd probably expect to get another. You'd probably expect to get another success. It's probably killing wise. It's probably on par with the energy sword in terms of like how much you could reasonably expect to do with one. It will be one of the killiest weapons in the game. It's going to be very interesting to see if it's worth 16 points. It is a lot to put one on.
That's what
you can absolutely afford it. I think they've costed the Deadeye very well. The Deadeye's costed at 45, 46, depending on the weapon, which means it's not as easy to kind of get 2 shots out of a gun now, but the sort of to put one of these on a Gungnir, you're talking about almost 60 points to put one of these on a Gungnir, because those can, in the new rules, advance short and fire a long gun in a single round, which is good for them. It's very interesting. I think that I'm not rushing to put a Spartan laser on in a list right now, but we'll see. It is also one of the new pickups, so you are going to get shot with one on a fairly regular basis. So we'll see. I think it's definitely, if you need something to really kind of kill, I think this is going to be one of those weapons.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, and this is why reading this and seeing what actually happens is fascinating to me, because what's written down on paper, how the community interpret it, and even Mantic will be surprised about how everyone interprets it and what people's loadouts are going to be. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting to start seeing those results of the tournaments coming in. So, I guess, where should we go now?
I suppose the last thing on this is obviously because Spartans lose their knives when in war games, and they have to pay for those. Melee does become less prevalent. You actually start to see the balance switch between plenty of access to melee and being, there's a lot less access to melee and a lot more access to frag, actually, which is going to significantly, I think that's sort of the biggest initial meta shift. It's going to be very interesting to see if people are strapping lots of knives to Spartans to kind of retain that melee, or if they're going to kind of go in a different direction. So very interested to see how that unfolds. That's probably the last thing on kind of my initial kind of view of war games, and then we'll see how that plays out as we get into get a bit further into the meta.
Yeah, so we also should mention the new keywords as well, and I think you mentioned one earlier of EMP being one of them, also guarded and also stable. So we're not going to read out verbatim what those keywords are. I'm refusing to update them to the wiki until I actually get my pre-order. So if you do want me to update these keywords to the wiki, harass Mantic for my pre-order, and then we'll update it. But you eventually will find out if they are going to be publishing the rules online. No doubt they'll include all the key rules as well. We'll have a breakdown. Eventually we'll add these keywords to the wiki, but it should be noted that we have got 3 new ones, and it might pay just to get clued up on those. And we may go into it one day if we're starved for content, but I figured we mentioned that because that is going to be an interesting addition, those 3 there.
Absolutely.
All right, so should we go into the new missions that have been included in the book? So there's only 2. I believe there's only 2. Yeah, there's only 2: total control and attrition, which we did mention before. We did have a good feeling of what was going to be included, but now we actually can see the rules and how they're going to play out. So I've read through. I've got my own feelings on it, but James, being the more seasoned player, how are you feeling on these 2 scenarios?
So I haven't spent any time with these two yet, not least because they're not currently included in event play. So I've skimmed them. Total Control works more or less as we'd expected. You need to, you'll randomise 3 zones. It looks like an absolute pig to do that randomisation because you've got to kind of randomise 3 zones or 4 zones on a. You'll randomise 3 zones on a D8 across the board. It looks like a pig to work out at pace, but then when you control all 3 of them, you score a point and they move, and then you go again. I think it looks like a perfectly fine game mode. I think it probably interacts poorly with the scoring system for tournaments, so I can see why they're not initially including it. And then attrition similarly looks like broadly like we described attrition. You have a pool of respawns and you run out of
lives, basically. Yeah,
run out of lives. It also has a shrinking play area once people run out of respawns.
It feels very, very much. Oh god, what's the game? I can't remember. What's the game where a whole bunch of people... Fortnite. That's it.
One of the battle royales.
Yeah, Boy Royale. Yeah, I don't know why I blanked and I just never play them. But yeah, it feels very Fortnite-y, and it's kind of a shrinking area. I don't know if the shrinking area feels like it's going to stay. I think they'll probably get rid of that. I think the ground is already pretty small, and to shrink that, I don't know, that seems problematic to me.
I suspect it solves the problem of we've run out of respawns, we each have 1 model left. There's no incentive for either of us to leave the corner we're stood in. I suspect they have to kind of they have to then force conflict, which is the purpose of the shrinking play area. So, I mean, it makes sense whether it's something. I mean, certainly of the two, attrition feels more tournament balanced, but because of their current scoring system, you couldn't play either of these at a tournament as written. You need games to score out of 18 and produce a score for both players. Attrition doesn't do that, and Total Control would have something we'll talk about when we get on a little bit later on to talk about Capture the Flag. Would have sort of similar issues. So I think they're great game modes. They look very fun if you want to, if you're playing on your kitchen table. I think for an organised play experience, I think they're I think they're probably not what I would go for. Mantic have announced 2 new missions for organised play, which aren't in the War Games expansion, but are free online right now. Those are King of the Hill and Extraction. I've had a chance to play both, and both are excellent. So if you're looking to spice up your experience from the core gameplay, those are both fantastic game modes to give a go.
And we'll put the link down below as well if you want to check it out. I actually don't have the link on me at the moment because I just didn't have it on me. But you're going to have to be you're leading the charge on describing all those at the moment because I just don't have those on my screen.
No problem.
But yeah, so should we go into? I'm trying to think. I think we've covered everything. I'm trying to think of reading through the list to make sure that we've got everything.
No, I think we've covered everything in War Games we wanted to cover. I think part of the challenge we've had is we kind of, if you listen to this podcast before, our speculation of what War Games was going to bring was close enough to what War Games has actually brought that we're sort of struggling a little bit for new content on this. I mean, my overriding thought on War Games is, I mean, this is a triumph of a pack for the price that you're charging, with the models included, with all the gear you're going to need. This is a really fantastic addition to your game, and it's a really fantastic addition to your game even if you're not gonna play. You're not going to go to tournaments, so you're not going to play points. You just want to draft. There's something in here for everybody.
Agreed.
You got new game modes, new weapons, and new models, and I think that's fantastic.
I think it's also set the future up pretty well. I think going for one of the theories that we had about this one was that this was intended to future-proof the game, and I think the point system, how they've initially set everything up, it feels like it is setting it up for success. Again, I do think the Clive and the Mantic team should pat themselves on the back for it. Me and Clive don't always see eye to eye, but on this one, I definitely think he definitely has done a really great job. I'm assuming he is the main lead there because he is the main voice of Halo at the moment that comes from Mantic. So really, really good job, and I can't wait to see how the community react to it. I think everyone's really excited to start playing the tournaments. Everyone's got their own theories. You see it popping up, and you know this. There's two main Discords I look at. It's the Halo Flashpoint Discord and also the Mantic Studios, and all of them, there seems to be a lot of excitement around the new information that's dropped in the pack.
Yeah, I think everyone's excited. I can't wait. I can't wait for the next tournament, which is on Saturday, and then I have another one at the end of April as well. So, I'm really looking forward to getting my Halo on. I have about 2 days to paint a new fire team for that. So, I need to get a paintbrush out shortly.
Yeah, so we'll get a debrief once you've been to the tournament there. There is a potential we actually might have a special guest next time that will come along. That was at Adepticon. I'll tease that, but I don't know if that will actually come through. But we'll see if we can make it happen. So that would be really cool to see. It also would be interesting to see how, because I mean, that they're in America and you're in the UK, how the two scenes are slowly coming together and see if there's any commonality to how things are going, especially around the point system and around how the tournament scoring system is. I think there's a lot of, I want to say emotion, to put it delicately, about people's opinions on it, and it seems to be a bit of a mixed bag. I haven't actually heard anything out of Adepticon at the moment about how that went down, because I think Adepticon was the first big tournament that they had that scoring system that you've experienced there, James. So have you heard anything about the outcomes with that? How people's feelings are about it?
So for Adepticon, no. I mean, I'm waiting for the news like everybody else. I think a lot of people are still travelling back from Adepticon. I'm sure we'll get more info, and it'd be interesting to compare and contrast after we've had UKTC. We did have sort of the last kind of draft style tournament, the sort of the current system pre-war games in the UK a couple of weeks ago. That was a fantastic time. Good number of players. I think we actually have more players for that than we got than the Mantic got in the US Nationals. So Adepticon, so that was really good. Everyone was there loving the game, and this was before War Games, right? So they hadn't seen points yet. This is just playing with the stuff we've had for several months. One of the guys brought some homemade biscuits in the shape of Halo sort of artifacts. They found some Halo cookie cutters, so they'd made some nice biscuits. It was a really community, really positive experience. The scoring system continues to produce strange results that I disagree with, but that's for another podcast, I think. Broadly, there's you've still got people on 4 wins finishing below people on 2 wins, so losing half your games and finishing above someone who won all of their games. It's because of the noob farming element of the way the scoring works. I don't like that, but it is what it is. I'll be really interested to see how things stack out once we've got kind of war games in place.
I just want to say also, the biscuits thing is so British. I'm sorry, that was the most British thing that you've ever said on the pod. So they brought biscuits in the shape of Halo artifacts. That's really great. But also in the notes, it actually does say farming noobs. So it looks like James was enjoying farming noobs there. You did mention, it says here, I'll stop winning to beat you up more. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think there's this is Dave reading my half-formed thoughts as from the Google Doc.
I find them hilarious. I found them hilarious as well.
So there is a little bit of the system. Okay. So very quickly,
here's the rant. Here's the James rant where he's been building for this rant for a couple of weeks. People he's wanted to be on it.
And I'll preface with saying, the game's in a fantastic place. Go to events. The game's fantastic, right? I'm enjoying the game immensely.
From a good spot. All right.
Yeah. I think the place just for the very uninitiated, right? The scoring at an event is not based on win-loss draw. It is based on your placing at the end of the event is based on total tournament points. That's made up of 3 components. About 1/4 is win-loss draw. About 1/4 is achievement points, which is broadly clowning on your opponent, double kill, multi-kill, Avenger, the kind of achievements that it would shout at you in the privacy of your own home when playing on Xbox Live, but obviously you have to score track between you and your opponent in game, and then the sort of remaining roughly half of your score is the total points, the total victory points you scored in your game, and the game's score to 18. What this does is it creates a situation where, in order to do well at the event, you need to maximise your score. Now, really, score maximisation tends to happen when one player is much more experienced than the other, because two experienced players having a close game, which I think the way most people would say is probably the most fun way to play a game, often produces really close and low-scoring results because there's a strong element of denial in the way Halo scores. You're forcing people to drop the odd ball, you're denying people flag captures, you're knocking people off stronghold points, you're locking up stronghold points by having two people on them. I think so what you end up with is, in order to maximise your score, you kind of have to noob stomp or seal club people or whatever your preferred euphemism is for kind of maximising a win against a player. And then on the flip side, like, you do get situations like in my final round at the event where it's like I'm up 8 points to 2. My opponent cannot mathematically win the game of oddball we're playing. Well, it's not 8 to 2, but 16 to 4 because you double the score in oddball. But my opponent cannot mathematically win. I need to pick up the oddball once more to win the game. But there are still achievement points I can get. So do I not kill them and start beating them up for achievement points, trying to get that triple kill off them? Trying to kill 4 of theirs without losing any of my own in order to kind of score that achievement? Or do I win the game? Now, against my better judgment, I took the I'll win the game option, so that my opponent, who's already, not having a fantastic time because they're down 16-4 at this point, or 8-4, 8-2, depending on how you want to count it. I chose not to beat them up more for points. I don't like the counter argument that's often deployed here is that that person has the chance to earn some more points themselves. And I don't think that's the reality of what happens. I think what happens is you just continue to club somebody who's already not having a good time some more, so that you get more points out of them. I don't like the system. Anyone who defends a system broadly ends up. I get in trouble because when I discuss this with people online, the handful of people, broadly the people on the rules committee defending the sort of the thing, will inevitably say something out. I get in trouble for saying, sort of pointing out, like playing the thing they've just said back to them, like this is being obtuse. So, well, I'm sorry, you have just said out loud the better player is the player that lost half their games, or we differentiate. We differentiate the winners. ... by placing them under people who lost half their games. It's very difficult to describe what this system is doing without accidentally saying something ludicrous, which is part of the problem with the system. Like I say, the game's in a fantastic place. The game is really fun. The only problem is this scoring system, because this scoring system is nonsense. And if you do genuinely believe that the total score, having a higher total score, makes you a better player, right? Or you can mathematically determine who the better player is, because that's what they're saying. They're saying, well, you can mathematically determine who the better player is using this, and it's not connected to winning. So why don't you just connect it to winning then? If you can mathematically generate inside the game who's playing better, why not make that what wins you the game? It really is. And then they go, oh, well, it's not all about winning. But then it's actually about beating people up for more points. It gets very circular, and it's very hard to describe what this system is doing that's useful. After about, you get like 2 questions into, like, in project management, you often get a question like 5 whys, like ask why 5 times to get to the root of a what are we doing and why. You get about 2 whys into this before the defender of the system has to say something either untrue or ludicrous, in order to sort of justify why this system exists. My view is, for a new game to really promote seal clubbing in the way that this system does is unhelpful to the community. But other people have other views, and the game is still fun to play. So I'm going to go to Sheffield on Saturday, and I am going to grind some new players' hobbies into the ground for achievement points, and apparently that's fine.
Well, first of all, I'm shocked that you were arguing with people on the internet. From my understanding, the internet, everyone gets along and there's no fighting at all and there's no discourse. So, very shocked by that one. But I completely get your point. I think there is a bit of a feeling that it doesn't feel like the best player actually wins tournaments, which feels a bit counterintuitive of what a tournament actually is. I mean, you just think when you play a tournament, the best player wins, right? The best player is the one that's on top, not the best one that can seek certain achievement points. I mean, I know that's a little bit more of a broad term than going into the nitty gritty, but it doesn't feel right for me. Of like, you could win every single game, but still not win a tournament. Seems a bit wrong on the basis of like how tournaments are structured.
It seems when you can also calculate when you're also using what's happening in the game. So like historically, games have had soft scores, right, where you take into account painting and sportsmanship in order to kind of come to a combined score, right? And that I don't like. I think that system's ripe for abuse, which is why it's kind of broadly died off. But it is a system you can have. This isn't that. This isn't that. This is like more gaming. It's like measuring the game in different ways to produce a result. And that's totally cool, right? I'm up for secondary objective. Lots of systems have secondary objectives. But they're either a tiebreaker or they're part of what wins you the game. Because it's just very strange to me to turn up, if you turn up to an event as a newer player and go, yeah, this is how I win. You say, this is how you win the game, right? The tournament pack says, this is how you win this game of Capture the Flag. So, cool. But winning games of Capture the Flag is not connected to how you place in the tournament in a way that we don't really have a language to describe. It's like, actually, it's all about playing better than your opponent, but that's not about winning the game. It's about clowning on people for achievement points. It's just this sort of, the language is broken around it. It does not scan language-wise as a thing. So, look, I didn't want to spend hours on this as part of this podcast because we should be talking about War Games is really good. I'd be very interested to see how we go at Sheffield. I do think Capture the Flag is problematic because it's so binary, right? Each flag is worth 6 points. So if you win a game of flag 1-0, you scored 6 points for that. You are now 12 points behind somebody who's which is like a quarter to a half of the points that you're going to get in for a round. Sort of, behind someone who's won 3-1 or 3-2. It's like it's a very strange. It's a very strange system that I don't get what it's.
I don't think they've got it quite right yet. And us talking about, I don't think anyone should take this as being negative. They don't like, they hate it. It's nothing like that. It's us going, this doesn't sit right with a game that we like. I mean, we wouldn't be doing this is, I think, our 8th or 9th podcast on Halo if we didn't like the Halo Flashpoint. So straight off the bat, we say this from a point of when this is not sitting right for us as being fans of the game. And I think it's healthy discussion points to have, because I think one risk of continuing doing this kind of weird feeling when it comes to these games is when you're trying to sell the game to somebody that maybe not a Halo fan but just a fan of wargaming, and to tell someone who's like, all right, just observing the game, of like watching it take place and going, wait, I don't really understand how the person who won the most games didn't win the tournament. I think that can kind of leave a bit of a sour taste on people that are watching from afar as well, and not heavily invested in understanding why this ends up the way it is. So I think that might detract bringing people to the game as well, potentially, if they are hearing all these things, how the whoever wins the most games doesn't actually win the tournament. I think that might deter a few people that are more into the competitive side of things.
I think a tournament's a tournament, and I think, I think you're right about that. I think a tournament should be a tournament. If you're doing something else, you should call it something else. The problem is, it's not about it's not that these aren't competitive things to be doing, right? It's more that I think the behaviour it encourages is problematic because you end up with collusion because there's no reason to deny your opponent points so long as you kind of end up in the right place yourself. Breeds a kind of collusive atmosphere if you're not careful. There are kind of, some tactics will naturally, that are valid, like kind of playing a heavy denial game in Flag, will cost you and your opponent podium position across an event, even though that's probably the right way to play the game in front of you. And it just encourages noob farming. And I'm going to keep saying it because it's not, because it's true. And I know it's inconvenient for some people to hear that this is, that this is the case, but it isn't.
So yeah, I mean, I get how they're throwing this in because achievements being online, and that's a core part of Halo. Halo's always had achievements since Halo 3, and it is a big piece of it. It does sometimes feel like it's a little bit jammed in there, but I mean, I still think it could work. I still think it can work, but I also think there's definitely some tweaking that needs to happen. But we'll see. We'll see. I think with War Games, it may change a few things with the point system, and I think once we get more voices, more tournaments going, I think we haven't even been a year into having this game on the market, so I think we're still getting a feet on the ground of how these tournaments will work. So we'll see. We'll see how it develops over next. And if you out there have got any opinions about what we talked about in terms of the tournaments, how you feel it's working, if you've been to those tournaments, flick us a message. You can either do it on Discord, put a comment down below on the YouTube, or send us an email. And you can send us an email at manticuniversepodcast@gmail.com. But just reach out to us, even join our Discord and put a mention there, because we are only two idiots on the internet talking on a podcast. Doesn't mean we're always right, and it's always good to have as many voices in there because, according to James, everybody agrees on the internet. No one argues, so everything's fine. But yeah, so I think we've covered everything we want to do. I mean, one of the big things is we kind of got a lot of things right ahead of time. It's one of the joys of theory crafting. Sometimes you do get it right on the money. So I think now it's just let's get our hands on it, start playing it, and hopefully my pre-order gets sent out.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure Dave's pre-order will be here before I get my hands on Wave 3, and we'll. But thank you all for listening. And I did want to say,
I'll probably get a heart transplant before I get my Wave 2 pre-order.
You do live on the wrong side of the planet is the problem, Dave. But
wrong side of the planet. From my understanding, we're hitting the. No one messes with New Zealand. New Zealand is so shoved at the bottom of the world. You guys have all your international drama, and we're just shoved down here, just chilling out with little earthquakes here and there. We're fine.
Yeah.
We're fine.
Yeah, no, you're fantastic. It's on my list of places I want to visit New Zealand. I did also just want to say a big thank you to everyone who came up and said hello at recent events. A number of people came up to me, said they listened. And I just want to say, look, thank you, and thank you for listening. It's great to see the community forming, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of you at Sheffield, and then again at Nottingham at the end of the month. Really looking forward to it.
Did you actually have people coming up to you? I mean, obviously, I don't have anyone in New Zealand because barely anyone plays the game. But did you have coming
Yes,
up?
I did. Have a couple of people did come up to me and say, so they listened and they liked the show. So thank you to them.
Oh, cool. They actually like the show. That's. I mean, I knew people listened. I didn't know people actually liked the show. That's fair. That's now I've got a bit of an ego. All right, so thanks all for listening. Obviously, leave all your thoughts down below, and we'll keep the discussion going. We do have some plans for the next episode, and hopefully they come to fruition. So we're hoping the turnaround will be nice and quick. So if you've got any questions for the pod, flick it out to us, and I hope I run through the sign-off things because I always forget to do it. Make sure you follow us on Facebook at Mantic Universe Podcast. We've also got a Patreon if you want to chuck us a buck. We also got a Discord. Obviously, subscribe to our YouTube. We're actually doing some YouTube exclusive stuff soon, some unboxing. We may even chuck in some Halo things. I might actually, because for those, I have mentioned it before, the heart transplant, but I'm also going to be housebound for about a year. So I've been thinking about maybe figuring out a way I can play Halo remotely by myself. I haven't really figured it out yet, but I'm going to somehow figure this out. But yeah, just follow us on the social medias as well, and all that fun stuff. And I really appreciate everyone's support there. James, you might as well say goodbye. You'll be the one to say goodbye because I'm exhausted.
I'll see you soon. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, see ya.